I need more practice with this anyway. Okay, let's go through just a little bit of general information here. I think I've had all you guys before, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. You definitely know there's a VMware. VMware does seem to work better if you download it. You do have to tell it the server address, but you can get that from the non-downloaded one in the browser if you need it. So it's kind of nice to have that using VMware especially if you get sick or something. This is all Inventor, of course. So if you have any trouble downloading it on your laptop, if you want to download it, I always recommend that, but you don't have to do it, of course. Standard syllabus stuff, you guys are all real good about that. Stay off your phones, turn your phone on. I'll forget to half the time too. Try to make sure you're here at class if you can be. I know some of you can't, and sometimes you can't. Just make sure you don't get behind, because it's really hard to catch up in that last couple of weeks. So I'd rather you just keep up. It makes you do web better as well. So okay, so let's jump on into lab. Anybody have any standard questions about anything? So this class is very similar. It's Inventor again. The main difference is that we learn parametrics in this one. So it's all linked in this class. So you learn basically how, like, you'll understand this first lab is a perfect example. You're going to basically say something's based on something else when you're drawing it up, okay? And it's how, like, say you have a part that your design has to work for 20 different sizes, like say a pulley cover or something like that. You know, a pulley cover, if you have two different pulleys and two different sizes, if the pulleys get bigger, the pulley cover's got to get bigger. So it's something like that. You can put in two different sizes and they'll always get bigger. Okay, so we're going to be working on our projects like that, where they're a little bit more complex and more linked. Okay, there will be a final project again, just like last time. So be thinking about what you want to do. Don't wait till the last minute to do that. And we will do just a little bit of Rivet, not much, just enough to kind of remind you. Probably just one lab, maybe two. I think just one. And I think I might throw a SolidWorks one in there too to kind of remind you that a little bit. But otherwise, it's all Inventor the whole way through. We do transfer some CAD stuff back and forth, do a little 3D printing. So there'll be that all added in there. Okay, any questions? Nope, all good. Okay, let's jump into lab 2. Okay. Now I've already downloaded all these, so I'm going to open them up. So what we're basically going to create here, everybody's got to do a different one. See here, you will be given new values. Okay, so we'll just go around the room, start up in the front. So Claire, you're going to have version 2. Hunter, you have 3. Elizabeth 4. Golden 5. You have 6. Okay, so that's so that so basically what we're going to do is we're going to make it for the original dimensions. Okay, which is version 1. Okay, and then after that, we'll go in there and tell it that the radius is equal to your version that you have, and the diameter is equal to the version you have, and it should automatically adjust for that. Okay, so we're going to actually type in. I don't know if I showed you these in Inventor on the first Inventor class. I might have, but I'm going to jump in feet first this time, or head first, whichever. Okay, so I do have the instructions on here, kind of handwritten. I'm going to try to follow this because this is basically a connecting rod out of an engine of a car, and it's a little bit specific how it wants to be done. It doesn't like it if you change the way it's done a little bit. So I'm gonna try to follow the instructions as we go and not just throw it up there like I do sometimes, or I might pay for it. To go through the initial plan, we're gonna draw this bottom half and we're gonna type in these variables as we go, okay? And since they all vary, we might have to think this through a little bit here. Yeah, we'll try to type them in as we go. So that's the only thing I'm going to change up from the instructions instead of creating them in the parameters, okay? So go ahead and open up Inventor if you haven't already. I'm going to be doing 2022, so if you're doing it here on the computers at school, 2019 is actually a little more user-friendly. I think it is anyway. Maybe it's because I'm more used to it, but we're not going to create a project because it's only one part. Okay, you will have to create a drawing. Okay, so go to new, pick part. It's a regular part, not a sheet metal. I'm gonna do a split screen. You should have the instructions on one screen if you have two screens and the inventor on the other screen. Okay. So what I was talking about in the instructions in the very beginning here, it says start inventor, go to parameters, create all those parameters. Well, I'm going to show you how to shortcut that a little bit, but what that means is you can actually create parameters in the manage tab, and there's parameters right there. It brings up a user interface. It's not very user friendly, and you can type in information here, an equation, and pick like add numeric to create another parameter, which a parameter is just like making 3 letters that have a number attached to it, like length, diameter, thickness. You can call it anything you want. It starts out with, as you create them, I think it calls them D1, D0, D2, Z3 till it gets 100 of them as you draw. And those are automatically created every time you're drawing something, but you can make specific ones, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, and then unlock them to it. Okay, it's a little tricky, so I'll try to do it right here. So we're going to do this sketch. Remember the best way to draw this thing if it's arcs or lines. I think I usually draw lines and then arcs and more lines, and then maybe circles with trims there, and then turn this into the center line. Okay, so let's create that center line first because that's the biggest one. Let's see, that isn't going to work very well either because it goes to a center point there. I guess we're not going to do that. We'll start out going down this way and going around. Okay. Okay. So we're going to kind of follow that around here, and we're going to type in the real numbers as we go. We're going to ignore the circles on this one. So this one's a little bit different. Back to 3D model, start a 2D sketch, start a 2D sketch on 3D model tab. And then we're going to pick the XY plane like we typically would. Okay. Everybody good and logged in? Okay, and then we're going to pick a regular old line. We might change them to construction lines later, but right now, pick your regular old line. Start out at the origin, okay? Move your mouse straight down. And where that blue number is, you need to type in. Already seeing problems. Okay, so like I said, this thing's a little bit picky. So it wants a center line because that's the only way it does. Center line dimensions. See how these dimensions jump across the center line? Okay, so those are center line dimensions, which typically means it's going to be on the other side as well. So we need a center line for that to work. Okay, so just hold the mouse to the right, and this thing is roughly, give me a dimension for that. It's roughly length. So it's roughly 6.5. So just type in, hold it to the left and type in 7. Okay. Well, I guess I moved my mouse a little too much in and out. So I'm going to start over here. Line, hold it to the left, and 7. Okay, now I've got a 7-inch long line there. Now this line needs to be a center line. So go ahead and hit escape and get out whatever you're in and pick on that line, okay? And then up there where it basically shows the construction line and center lines, pick the center line button. Make sure you get center line, not construction, because it won't work. Pick construction, okay? So now we turn that line into a center line. Okay, now I think it'll actually do those dimensions across the center line if we're careful, hopefully. Not, we'll just put the regular old dimensions in and do them later, but it's a lot harder to do that. All right, so back to the beginning, turn the center line or pick line, turn the center line off if it's on, which is mine's not on. We switched it after the fact, but if you did actually have it on, turn it off. And let's try to draw that line down here at the bottom again. And it's still not. I guess we'll just have to dimension that after the fact with those dimensions. Okay, how far down is that darn thing? Radius times 3, so it's about 3 inches. So go down about 2 inches or 2.5 inches and just pick a point. Okay, we're going to dimension it after the fact because it's got all those crazy radius dimensions. Okay, and then hold it to the left. And I don't know, about a 1/2 inch over, go to the left and create that one, okay? And then go up, make sure you're going straight up, I don't know, about a 1/2 inch. And then go to the right, about a 1/2 inch. Okay, we're creating this little leg right here, okay? Now, there's a little trick here for creating an arc. And you can try it if you want to, or you can just switch over and draw an arc in there. I'm going to try it just to show you how it works, because if you do it enough, you can kind of get good at it. So I know I've talked about this back in the first invariant class. If you hold down on your left mouse button on the beginning point and drag it, you can create that arc. Okay, so I'm going to hold down with my left mouse, drag it up, and see how I'm creating an arc from even though I'm in line. Okay, and now I'm going to go, I don't know, about that far, maybe not quite that far, something like that. We're going to put dimensions on this after the fact anyway. Okay, now I'm going to continue with doing in my line. Okay. Sometimes it's hard to get that to work if you've never done it before. You can always just escape and pick an arc up here and draw a small arc too. That'll be fine as well. Then go over to where you're close to that 7, close to the end of the line, and just stop right there. Okay. Okay, so let's throw some dimensions on there. Let's do the outside one. Which ones do we want to do first? I don't know if it makes too much difference. We'll do the outside one first. Everybody caught up? Everybody got drawn what I do? Everybody not? Yeah, it's a little hard. Yeah, it's a little bit tricky trying to draw some of these things. Okay. Now let's go ahead and make this arc tangent with this line right here. I think mine's pretty close, but it's definitely not tangent. So let's force it to be tangent. Okay. So go ahead and pick the underneath the constraints. The one that has a circle with the line is the tangent constraint. If you remember, so pick that one. Okay. And then pick on that arc and pick on that line. It'll force them to be tangent. Okay. So that they're perfectly smooth or the line joins the arc. Okay, now I think we're finally ready for putting those dimensions in. So hopefully this works. So we're going to do the bottom one first. All right. So go ahead and pick the dimension. All right. And the difference here is we're going to actually have to type all these numbers, all this stuff in as we go, and we'll see if it takes it or not. I don't know. So I'm going to pick the center line, and I'm going to pick that bottom line, and I'm going to hold over here at the left, and you should be getting a center dimension where it's going across both. And I'm going to pick a spot for it. Okay. And now where that number is, I don't know if I know what that number is a problem. I think we have to create these darn things. Usually we wouldn't, but I think we have to create them. Yours might have been tangent when you created it. So delete that dimension off there. Let's do it. So if your arc was already tangent when you drew this, it's gonna say overly constrained because it's already done. So let's go ahead and go back and create the parameters. That's probably the why I put that note in there. So go back to Manage tab, hit the Parameters button. Okay. We're going to follow the instructions here at the very top on number 1. Trying to shortcut it, but since there's so many linked together, that's why it's not working. If you just had like, if you made one thing the radius and one thing the diameter, but since they're all linked together, it's hard to do them. Just type them in. Okay, then create these user parameters with the value show by using add numeric. Okay, so we're going to pick add numeric right here. All right. And where it says model parameter, what's the value shown below in the equation box? Okay. All right. So where it says user parameter, that's where you type in like all these here. So where it says user parameter, I'm going to type in DIA. Okay. Put my caps on DIA. Right. And in the equation box, I'm going to tell it how big it is. So it's 1. Okay. All right, which is the default on that one. Okay, and I'm gonna pick add numeric again. All right, I'm gonna create the next one, LGH for length. All right, and then on this first one we're drawing at 6.5. Okay, in the equation box. All right, and then add numeric again and RAD. And see, you can type these in as you go if we were only doing one diameter and length, but it didn't work because the actual dimensions were like rad times 3 divided by 1.25, and that's where it kind of fell apart. Okay. Okay, so the next one, rad, is 1 again. Add numeric and THK for thickness, and that one is 1 as well. Okay, so there's only four dimensions on this whole thing that control this whole connecting rod. Okay, they're all just linked with other math functions. Okay. This D01, we're going to delete that here in a minute anyway. It should be gone. I think you hit done when you get that done. Okay. Okay, that's probably what I should have done in the first place. Okay, go back to 3D model. All right, I guess go back to sketch because we're still in sketch. Okay, and go to your dimensions again like we were before. Pick dimension, pick that bottom one, pick the center line, get your center line dimension, pick a spot for it. And where that number is showing up, that's where you type in this information right here. So let me make that a little bit bigger so you can see it. So we're going to type in this one, rad asterisk 3 in brackets there, plus THK divided by 2 in brackets. So type all that information in there, okay, and hopefully it works. Rad 3 plus, if it's red, it's not going to work. So when you get done, it should be black. THK, depending on the version you're using, I think, but with the color. But see how mine turned black there, so it knows how big that is. Okay. And if you're just using 1, so say I just wanted this to be the radius or something, I'd put rad equals like 3, and then it would actually create that parameter rad, and it would make it equal to 3 all while I'm drawing it. That's a fast way to do it. That's what I was trying to do, but since they're all linked, it didn't really work. Okay, hit check mark when you get it done. Okay, that should go. Yeah, if you have any dimensions besides the one I'm putting in, even this 7, we're going to delete. Okay, if you want to delete that one too, we don't want any of those in there. Okay, now we're going to do the next one. So we're going to do this little box here. So same thing all over again. So pick dimension. Okay, pick the second horizontal on the bottom there, and the center line again. And you can put it anywhere. Remember the customers can't see the sketch anyway, so it doesn't have to look perfect here for the dimension location. So I'll put this one over here. And this one is rad times 2.5. Okay, rad and there's no brackets, times 2.5. Okay, so hopefully it's starting to look a little bit better. Okay. And then we're just going basically we're trying to get to this one right here now. Okay. That's why I put the second sketch on there to kind of help you know which ones to start with. Okay, so we've got those first two done. We got to do this one now. So this one is THK divided by 2. So I'm gonna pick that bottom line, pick a spot for it. THK divided by 2. Okay. Okay, and then I've got that one done. This one. Okay. Eventually I'm gonna need to do that arc there as well. So now I guess we'll do this one here, this arc. It is an arc, so that's good. All right, so pick a spot for that. And that should be, you gotta watch out and make sure you do diameters where you're supposed to do diameters, radius where you're supposed to do radius, right? If it's a full circle, it should be a diameter. If it's a partial circle, it should be a radius. Diameter times 2. Okay, enter. And it did not like that. It kind of blew up when I did that one. Okay. So to get something like mine where it blows up on you, then you need to kind of drag it around to try to fix it. So I'm gonna drag it to the left, grab that arc, and I'm gonna drag it to the left. And it created a radius or it created a diameter on there for some reason. I don't know why I did that. It shouldn't have. But that's definitely a diameter. See, that's the full length. I think it is anyway. It looks too big. I'm going to delete that dimension off there, and I'm going to try to drag this down where it's supposed to be. Okay, like that. Okay. We'll go ahead and do the second length here while I'm at it. That's from beginning to end. And I'll go back and fix that other one here in a second. So dimensions, I'm going from this point to this line. I'm gonna put it down here, and rad times 0.75 is that, rad asterisk 0.75. Okay. Now I'm gonna drag this around, try to clean it up like that. Okay, it's a little tricky. Okay, now I'm gonna try to do this radius one more time. So I see what's going on here. It made this radius go straight up perpendicular to this line. Now, if I right click on mine, it did, and might have done on yours too, probably did. I do right click and do show all constraints. It doesn't really show that, even though it's done it, did it, and it's locking it into there. So I'm going to have to delete that radius out of there and force it to be right. Okay, because it's doing it, it's right at this quadrant point. It's going straight up 90 degrees. And it's not that is not the case. It's showing a parallel, and it's not showing that doing that, but it's forcing it to happen. And I can't get it to not do it, probably because this line, this point on this quadrant is vertical with the center point here, even though it's not supposed to be. All right, so the way to fix that is not too bad. If yours is like that, it's going straight up and down, we're going to have to fix it because it's not supposed to be straight up and down. So I'm just going to delete that arc because it failed miserably. Grab that line and grab that point and move it way over here to the left. Now I'm going to draw an arc between that. So 3-point arc, point, try to make it look similar. Probably grab the tangent if you're careful. See, I'm getting the tangent to show up right here. So if you see the tangent showing up, try to get that. If not, you can force it to be tangent later with a constraint. Okay. So that looks better. Now it's closer to right. Now I can do that dimension without it blowing up on me. Okay, so I deleted it. I created a new arc that was not straight up and down, 3-point arc. Okay. Now I'm going to dimension that one. And it's definitely giving me a radius there. So let's see if it works this time. It's a DIA times 2. Okay, that looks pretty good. That actually worked. Okay, what am I missing here? So it looks like I'm missing this bottom line to the center line. So I'm gonna do that one. Bottom line to the center line. Right here, it is a center line dimension again. So make sure it's going across the center line. Make sure all your dimensions are going across the center line. DIA times 0.75. is a little tricky. Start off the first lab with a one that's not easy. Okay. Because if it was easy, it wouldn't be any fun. All right, so this thing is fully constrained on mine. It says I still need 2 dimensions. It's probably this center line because I didn't give it a length, but I'm going to give it a length here in a minute. Okay, everything's purple that I see. So that's what I was going for anyway. So it's good. Is there a line right there? That's my graphics. Okay, I'm gonna let everybody get caught up to this, and then we'll draw this arc in the circle next. We're about done with the darn sketch. Okay. All right, we'll give everybody a minute to get all those dimensions added in there. So it does say UL on there. All that UL means is unitless, okay? I think I had to right click on here to show all these parameters. So the way you don't have to do this, but just so you can kind of see, if you want to see the parameters as you type them, you can right click. Yeah, I think you actually got to pick on that dimension first. And then right click, and where is it? Dimension properties. And then you go over here to the document settings. And I think you switch that over to show expression that was on show tolerance. Okay. I'll probably put it back so it looks the same as everybody else. But if you do that, see how it shows all the information in there. So that's kind of handy when you're doing stuff like this sometimes. It's a little bit overkill too sometimes. I'm gonna go back to the way it was. Properties. Okay. Okay, so let's do this arc. That's the easiest one first. So that's just probably a circle trimmed, and it's just a rad is the so this again, we'll want to put the dimension in after the fact. You could type in rad, but the problem is it's going to be a circle, so it's going to give you a diameter unless you actually draw it as an arc. So I'm going to do a circle because it's easier and then add a dimension after the fact. Pick circle, pick on that origin point. I don't know, put it about the right size. Don't worry about what size it is so much. Okay, I'll trim it up. So go over to the trim button, little scissors thing, and make it look like the example. Okay, get rid of that top 3/4 of it. Okay. All right, now go ahead and put your dimension on there, and it should just be rad. Nothing fancy. And you could have dimensioned the circle too by right clicking and changing over to radius dimension. That would have worked as well when you put it in. But all right, so now that's a rad. All right, so we're still pretty much fully defined. At least everything's right color. Okay, so let's do this last one. This one is also a trimmed up circle. It'll be a little tricky. I'll wait to make sure everybody got that arc done. Okay, so let's do this last circle. So pick a circle again. Don't give it a dimension. Just give it roughly the right size. Put it on the end of your center line, wherever your center line is at. Okay, because notice its dimension to that center point. Okay. And we'll extend it over there here in a minute. And just put it roughly the right size again, because we're going to have to do. Looks like it is a radius dimension, so it only goes halfway across. So I think we're good on that in a minute here. Okay, so let's extend both of these lines to the end, if it'll let us. So hit the extend button right there. Extend the bottom line to hit the circle and extend the center line to go to the edge, okay? And then let's trim this thing up. There we go. Okay. Okay, now we can put that dimension on there. So the dimension of this is diameter times 0.625. Okay, so right there, I'm going to put the dimension, trying to make sure I don't mix the wrong ones here. Okay, that's a radius dimension again, because it's not a full circle. So, which is what default is anyway. Diameter times 0.625. It's easy to mess that up when if you dimension too early. Like I said, you can always right click. Now you can see my center point jumped off the line here. If yours did that, which most of it probably did on most of you, we need to make this collinear is the name of it. So let's drop down our constraints and find the one that shows I think that's the right one anyway. Linear constraint there, collinear. Okay, second one over. Okay, and then pick on the line and then the point, and it didn't work. So I guess it's coincident. Sorry. All right, so pick the coincident one, which is the one right next to it. Okay. It's also collinear, but anyway, it doesn't want us to use that. So here's pick on that point and pick on the line. There we go. Yeah, if it already exists, then it's probably right. I mean, if it's already on that line, it probably was locked up on yours already. Okay, so we got that done. Like I said, if a constraint already exists, that means you don't have to do it. And let's go ahead and put this fillet in here, okay? So pick fillet and that circle, and I guess we ought to type in the darn fillet radius first. So I'm gonna hit escape, hit fillet, and where it says 0.125 there, I'm gonna type in this dimension here. Where it says it's just diameter, which is kind of weird. I'm surprised that's the diameter, but it is. So anyway, DIA, okay? And then I'm gonna pick this arc and this line and create it, okay? Okay, I think we only got one more left to do, and that's the length from the center of that circle or arc, I mean, to the very end, right? Yep, and that is length, okay? Okay, so do the dimension from the center of that arc over to the, I'd pick the bottom of this rod. You're probably gonna have to trim this line off anyway, so the bottom of that rod line there again. And up here, and that is LGH. Okay. Right to the end. Make sure you go to the bottom of it though, because I think we'll just leave that line on there. I don't think it's hurting anything anyway. Yeah, it looks like it's on here on this one too. So all the way to the right to the center point of the circle. Yeah, well, just pick the line itself. And it says fully constrained. Yeah, that's what we were going for. If it doesn't say that, there's a couple of things you can do to try to figure out what you did, what's missing. One thing you can hit escape and get out of everything, and right click and hit show all degrees of freedom. And none are showing up, but if you see a bunch of arrows, that kind of tells you where the problem is at least. Okay, bunch of red arrows. I'm gonna hide all degrees of freedom now. I don't have any because it's fully locked. The other thing you can do to find out if you think something might not be right is you can grab it, drag it around. If it moves, it's not like if I drag it around and the center point moved off that line, that would tell me that, you know, that point needs to be on there. Okay. Is everybody fully constrained? Somebody needing help? I'll never earn my pay when I'm working with you guys. All right. I think we're ready to mirror this thing. I think that's what the instructions say. I'm going to read them because I don't want to mess this one up again. I already did once. Okay, so sketch on the XY plane, center line, various items, dimension, bottom half, profile, as parametric show. And extrude both ways on the XY plane. Yes. So and then mirror after you do it. Okay. Mirror the solid about the center line. Okay, or that plane would really be. Okay, so evidently it doesn't like it if I think it would probably work both ways, but well, it's not going to extrude unless that's got a center line. Maybe it will. I don't know. I think with the center line, it won't extrude anyway. So I think we need to mirror first, but I'm going to try it. So just don't do anything yet. Let's see what happens. So I'm going to do this. You just hold back. So finish. And then I'm going to hit extrude, and I'll bet it doesn't work. Like I need to update my instructions. Oh, it did work. Okay. I was thinking that center line wouldn't let it work, but if there's a construction line, it would ignore it, but a center line, it actually works. Okay, so hit finish sketch. Our instructions were actually right, believe it or not. Okay, and pick on that bottom part, okay? And then we want to extrude it the right distance, so we gotta be careful here. So okay, so it doesn't really tell me there. So I think it's probably the thickness, but let's find out here. Yeah, it's THK. There we go. Okay, my stupid Zoom thing keeps showing up in the way right there. THK. Oh, that's the overall. It's thickness divided by 2. Okay, yeah, it's just this. This thing's a little tricky, so you gotta be careful. So yeah, it's thickness divided by 2 on the distance. And we got to go about the center. Okay. We got to extrude both ways. I think it said the notes too. That's pretty important. Yeah, extrude both ways. So pick on the third arrow over that's going both directions. Okay. So it's going both ways across the center point, and then then THK divided by 2. I told you this thing's a little tricky. Okay. So now it basically went across the center plane, which is both.
Work. I have a quick question. Yep. Oh, perfect. Oh, wait, I don't have that circle either.
Why is that circle not showing up? No, we can always add it after the fact, but I don't know. It's annoying. Extrude. There, I guess I just didn't pick it right. Okay, so make sure you pick it without the circle. I didn't do that right, so. Okay, so it needs to be look like that. Thanks for bringing that up, Hunter. THK divided by 2. We definitely do not want that circle in there, so. All right, everybody good? Okay, hit okay when you get that done. All right, the next thing I think it wants us to do finally is mirror this, and then we can start adding the other stuff. And you can probably guess you're mirroring across this plane right here. So go ahead and pick the mirror button in your solid, pick the only solid that exists. Pick mirror plane button and pick that top plane so it mirrors across it. Hit okay, and it actually worked. Yay. Oh, pick mirror. Okay, and then just pick the right stuff. Pick the object, and then pick the plane button, and then pick the right plane. Okay, next thing it says to do is draw the raised bosses on each end and then extrude. Okay, so the raised bosses are these things right here, okay? So we're going to draw them on each end. We could probably do them both at the same time. So that's this part right here. Okay, and this part. So we're supposed to mirror those when we get them done and extrude. You can extrude both ways. I'm sure it would actually work. Got a total thickness of THK. That'd probably be the best. You're going to want to do it on the center plane. Okay. If we don't do it on the center plane, you won't be able to type in THK for the right thickness for the extrusion. Okay. So we need to draw these bosses on the center plane, which was the XY plane. Okay. So pick start 2D sketch, and go over here to your browser, expand your origin, and pick the XY plane. Okay. Okay, so now we're drawing on the center of that thing. Okay. And then we want to basically use these circles. So I'm going to project the ones that I have, which I've got the outside one here, and then I can use them to help. And I've got the inside one here. Okay. So I'm going to go project geometry. And I'm going to do this inside one, project it, and I'm going to do the outside one here. And what that's going to give me is some center points and stuff to work with more than anything else. I might be able to, I could probably use this one and not have to redraw it, but I'll have to redraw the rest of them. So then I'm going to pick circle and use that center point. And it says this one outside is radius times 0.125. So let's go ahead and draw this in dimension. And I wanted to kind of show you that anyway. So it's giving me a diameter, right, for my dimension. I'm going to pick a point for it first. It's about the right size. Okay. Well, I did it wrong, sorry. Too many software, so I'm gonna try again. So I'm gonna type in the right number here, but I have to right click first and switch it over to radius because since it's a full circle and I haven't trimmed it yet, it wants to do diameter. So I'm gonna right click, okay, and it's kind of a good thing to learn how to do a little better anyway. And right down here, it lets you switch to diameter when I right click, okay? So I'm gonna switch to the diameter, and then I'm gonna type in the correct one, which it says it's radius times, it's kind of hard to see here, it's radius times 1.25, okay? So RAD asterisk 1.25, okay? And why did it do that? Oh, because I did diameter and it was giving me a, why was it giving me a radius then? Yeah, that's not right. So we're going to delete it and do it again. It was actually a radius dimension, but I don't know why it was giving me a radius dimension. That doesn't make it. Maybe I switched it a while ago. So it should be a radius dimension, not a diameter dimension. Led you astray. So I'm going to right click on this thing, make it switch it back over to radius. Okay. If it says diameter there, just don't pick anything. I'll switch it back over to radius like I should have left it. I think earlier I did a diameter dimension and it probably switched it, and that's why it's stuck. Okay. Now I type in RAD times 1.25. So it is doing radius dimension and it was already doing it. Okay, that looks a lot better. Okay, I think we can project these two edges here and then trim that off, and that side should be done. So let's try that. If it doesn't work, we'll come back and redraw them. Sometimes it doesn't like to extrude projections. So I'm gonna pick project geometry, and these two right faces, I'm gonna pick them. You can't see them very good there. If you hit them, I'm gonna hit escape. If you want to see what you're working on better, you can hit the F7, or like my function keys don't work for the crap. So you can right click and pick slice graphics, and you can see what you're working on a little bit better. Okay. And you can see I've got this fully surrounded by lines and arcs and stuff. So now I just got to trim that up. And I probably wouldn't even have to trim that up. I'm going to trim. Maybe it's gone. All right, I think that'll extrude. If it doesn't, I'll have to come back in here and add lines and arcs, or just trace around them because it's fully constrained. Okay, I'm gonna go do this one, and this one does not have a circle going all the way around. So I'm gonna create, this one's pretty easy. Pick circle. I'm gonna pick my center point and just pick anywhere on this circle. It doesn't really matter where, it'll lock to it. Okay, and that should be fully constrained. I'm gonna do another circle on the inside of this. And this one is a diameter. So I am going to right click and make sure it's diameter. It's not. So I'm gonna switch it over to diameter. Okay, because I'm not trimming this. So it's going to be a full circle. So it needs to be a diameter. And it says it's just DIA. Okay. That's actually the diameter on the inside. The outside was times 1.25. But all right, so this is just DIA. Okay. All right, that looks good. Don't trim that up. It says one dimension needed, so something's goofy here. Probably this darn circle's not looking right. Yeah, see, it didn't lock to it. Okay, so if it still says your one dimension needed and that circle is black, you need to lock it to that other circle. So there's a constraint for that, as you can probably imagine. So if yours is locked in blue, then good. I probably could have picked like this point here, and it might have locked it, but I didn't. So I'm gonna go to there's a concentric constraint. I'm picking concentric, and that just means two things the same diameter. No, that means same center point. That ain't gonna help me any. I can pick the equal. Okay, that'll do it. So I'll pick equal. Okay, I'll pick this circle, and I pick that outside diameter one. And now that locked it in. Okay, now they're both the same. Concentric just means you have the same center point, which they definitely did anyway, because I picked it. All right, let's see if everybody's good on that.
Make sure the fully constrained. Real good.
Okay. Let's see if this thing will extrude. So we're going to extrude both directions from the center, and it's a total of THK thickness, right? So finish sketch and hit extrude and try to grab those bosses. Hopefully it grabs them. And it's not. So let's see if we can make this thing work. So it's not grabbing it because we got a solid. There's a couple things you can do here. One thing is you can switch the view so you can actually see it. So you can. Why? Well, if you can get them to work, grab them and make them go. Mine didn't work. Okay. So I'm trying to basically, well, they did this time. They did. Maybe I just didn't take my time. That one did anyway. What you can do is if you got multiple options, you can hover over it like that. Okay. And then after you hover, I didn't move my mouse, I just let go of it. And I hit drop down. Now I can pick my two different options here. Okay. And you can right click, do that sometimes too, but I picked the one I want there. And they're going both directions. And this THK is the actual size. Now, I don't think this front one's going to work, but yeah, it did. Okay, there it is. I don't know why it didn't work a while ago, but it did now. So, and again, you could hover over long enough and it'll give you multiple options if there are some. All right, so that actually worked pretty good. Thanks again. All right, yeah, it'll let you pick through things usually. If it doesn't, if you got too much stuff, what I was getting to is you can go to the view tab and you can switch over to like hidden lines and then you can see all those things. Sometimes that makes it easier, okay? So I'm gonna hit okay here. So just to show you what that was, looks like we're gonna have to extrude cut that center out too here in a minute. Go to view tab, visual style, wireframe. You know, you can kind of see stuff a little bit better. The sketches are used up now, so they're consumed by this, so you can't see them, but they would be there before. Okay. But okay, so some of them were extruding pretty tough. So I'm going to go back and show you the hidden line one just in case anybody online is having the same problems. All right. So I'm going to switch visual style over to wireframe. Okay. And I can see all this stuff better. And then I go back to 3D model in case you're having trouble. And then extrude. And then what I do is like this one here is the one giving everybody trouble. So if I hover over that long enough, might have to hover over that line. I get multiple options. Okay. And you can pick the option that actually works. All right. And if that still doesn't work, let me get mine to work here first. And I switch it over to both directions, thickness. Okay. So if that still doesn't work, the other option you can do it is if you're in that sketch here, a lot of times what will happen is it doesn't like projected geometry. So just redraw over the top of that stuff and make sure it's fully constrained. Either make it equal, or like I did with that other one, if you have to. But usually you can just draw over the lines and arcs, basically going from there to there. And as long as it stays fully constrained, you're good. Do the other one down here and draw this arc, okay? Now, we didn't have to do that, so I'm not going to worry about it. But if that's the foolproof way, sometimes you have to redraw over that stuff. Finish sketch. Okay, I don't like working them with hidden lines in 3D, so I'm going to turn that back off to shade it with edges. Okay. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, I think, on this, draw the raised bosses on each end and extrude. Okay, so this really should say on the center plane, but anyway, sketch the hole, the small hole on the small end, extrude, cut that out. Make a sketch plane on the side of the rod and sketch dimensions for the pockets. Okay, so that's the pockets. So we're going to do this hole, then we're going to do the pockets. I'm going to kind of jump ahead here so I remember all this stuff, hopefully. Okay, we're going to fill these edges, and then we're going to put that hole in the end of it. And I think we're good. Okay, all right, so let's just finish this thing out. All right, so the first thing we want to do is get rid of this hole. So we're going to right click on this thing, new sketch, project that geometry for that center hole, and then we'll extrude cut that all the way through everything. Project geometry, pick that center circle, finish sketch. Okay, so we just projected that, and now we're going to extrude cut that thing all the way out of there. Extrude, switch it over to cut, and instead of a distance, we're going to switch it over through all right here. It might be a drop down on 2019, but switch it to through all. It should okay. Make sure it stays on cut. Sometimes it'll switch back and forth and then it'll air out. It doesn't stay on cut. Okay, and if it goes the wrong direction, it could be a problem too. Make sure it's actually going the right direction. Okay, so we've got that done. Let's go ahead and do this pocket that's in here, and we'll mirror it to the other side across the center plane when we do one of them. Okay, and that is shown right here. So it has a depth of thickness divided by 8. Okay, and these are all the dimensions for it. Okay, it's located with all these LGH numbers. Okay, and these diameters. Okay, there is actually a slot. Quick slot drawing in there underneath rectangle, but it's kind of trouble to do sometimes. So we want to do that one on this face because it's not really in the center plane. See, okay. So on this face right here, right click and new sketch, and try to reproduce this slot with 2 circles and parallel lines. You could maybe try to get it to work with the slot underneath here. Let's see if this one theoretically would work, but since we've got all those special dimensions in there, I don't know, we can try it, I guess. It might be quicker. Let's go ahead and try it. So I'm gonna pick that slot one and see if I get it to work. Okay, start of center point. There's that one. End of center point. This probably will work better. It's got a length of LGH divided by 2. LGH divided by 2. Okay, got that. I'm gonna right click and slice my graphics if it lets me, and it's not gonna let me because I'm in some. Okay, so this is the overall height. Okay, and that is diameter times 0.5. So DIA times 0.5. Almost too easy. Did that actually work? Okay. Okay, that actually worked, it looks like, anyway. So now we just need to tell it with the location left to right, okay, which is LGH divided by 3 for the first one and LGH2 for the, we already did that one. So we just got to tell it the beginning point. So dimension from here to this face. That's LGH divided by 3. Okay. 1 dimension needed. Okay, so I'm gonna hit escape and figure out which dimension's missing by just grabbing this thing and dragging it around. So even though I picked on that horizontal line, it didn't grab it. A lot of times it will not grab on the X and Y lines, even though you tell it. Okay, so we need to fix that. So the way to fix that is you basically tell it it's horizontal to this center point, and horizontal might be vertical depending on what inventor wants to do that day. So I'm gonna hit constraints. Pick the horizontal constraint and pick the center of my slot there, and then pick on this center point. And lo and behold, it's fully constrained, so that's good. Let's make sure everybody gets through that.
It's all the right colors. Might want to right click like that.
And probably the same thing to the other one, maybe. Okay, I also noticed when doing diameter dimensions on 2019, in case you couldn't find it. So when you pick this and you right click, it doesn't say diameter, it says diameter type sometimes, okay? So you might have to pick that to change this type, all right? It varies a little bit depending on version you're using. All right, so if you can't find it, it'd be under diameter type. Everybody good? Okay, all right, so the next thing we want to do is, I think, extrude cut this in THK divided by 8, okay? Okay, finish sketch. Right click, extrude, turn it over to cut. For the distance, THK divided by 8. Hit OK. Now mirror it across the XY plane. Click the mirror button, pick that feature that we just did. Okay, and for your plane, if you've got your browser already expanded, you can go ahead and, you got to pick mirror plane button first. Pick mirror plane button, and then XY plane, which is the center plane basically. Hit OK. All right, that thing should look like that now on both sides. Okay. All right, and the last, what's that? Okay, so the last thing we need to do here is put in these holes in the front of it. You see them at right here. See these holes in the front, and fillets across there. We're going to do that. Okay, so this is just a fillet. The radius on top, we'll do both of them. That'll give us the center point to put this hole in. Okay, so the fillets are THK divided by 4. The thickness is actually THK divided by 2, so half that would give us a perfect radius across there. All right, so just pick fillet. And for the size, type in THK divided by 4. Okay, and pick all those top and bottom corners on that little piece here. Remember, you can pick through the part. Okay. That's kind of, there's several ways to do that, but that's probably the easiest way. So then we'll hit OK there once you get that done. Same thing on top and bottom. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to put that center hole in there and extrude cut it all the way through. The center hole has got a radius of THK divided by 4. It's a diameter, sorry. And it's extruded cut all the way through. And it's on the same center point as that fillet was, okay? So we might have to project that. All right, so pick on that front face of, or the right face basically of the piston rod here, and right click a new sketch. Okay, and let's go ahead and see if we can draw those circles on it. We'll try it. So I'll pick circle. I'm gonna hover over that circle here and see if it'll show up. And it did, looks like, but I don't know if that's working right or not. It looks like it might be too low. So I'm gonna go ahead and project them. Okay, so project geometry. We'll pick the top of that arc we just drew, and that bottom one we just filleted. I mean, okay. Now I've got good center points to use. Okay, and then circle, and that way I know it's going to work. Pick on that center point, and it was THK divided by 4 for the diameter. I'm going to right click and make sure it is on diameter. It is, because it says switched radius, so it's on diameter. Okay, so THK divided by 4. Okay, and same thing down here. And if you could use the equal constraint to make those both equal and not have another dimension, but it's really just about as quick to do this. So 4. Okay, I've got both those circles drawn on center points. Okay, finish sketch and extrude cut them through. Cut, make sure it's through all. Pick on those 2 circles. All could be a little dangerous because if this back circle got really big, it would actually cut a hole through them as well. So, but we're going to put them through a one, just take a risk. Well, have a distance there. No, it doesn't. So we're going through a hole. So if you had ran into that, probably might have to go back and fix it, but it's pretty unlikely that that's going to be bigger than this. So, okay. Okay. All right, I think that piston rod is finally done. A little tricky, isn't it? But I mean, there's actually a lot going on there, and especially considering we had to make everything equal to something else. So kind of cool that there's only 4 dimensions on this whole thing, right? So let's finish this thing up, and then so the last thing I want you to do is I'll go ahead and save it. So this is just called a piston rod or lab 2. Okay. I'll save as. Make sure you save it to your U drive. Okay, create a folder for CAD 61 if you haven't already. If you're doing it on your laptop, of course, save it wherever you want, but your documents or whatever. So I'm gonna create a new folder on mine for this year. Folder 061 22. You don't need to put the year on it unless you want to. Okay, and this is lab 2, piston rod, whatever you want to call it. Okay. Get the error. It's on active project. That's fine. Yep. Okay, so now what I want you to do is go ahead and create a drawing. All right. And then after you create a drawing, take the number that you were assigned and go back into your parameters and change them. Okay, so let's go through that real quick. I'm just going to let you do the drawing on your own. So if you go back to the manage tab, don't change them yet. I want you to do the drawing first and then see how it changed. Okay, so you go to them after you get all the drawing all done, you're going to go into the part like we're in now, go to the manage tab and go to parameters, and where it says the nominal numbers here, you'll change it to the numbers shown just in the ones that changed. So just the rad, the length, the diameter, and the thickness. There's only 4 of them. Okay. Well, maybe they're at the bottom. Yeah. Yeah, down here. I'm sorry about messing you up. So down here in the user parameters, you'll change them after the fact. Okay. So change those to match your numbers down here after the fact. Make sure it's in the user parameters. Yep, that's it. These 4 down here, only these 4, and you don't do them until after you make your drawing. Now, granted, you might move a few things around in drawing to that hit, but I want you to kind of see how it automatically updates. That's the idea. Okay. So this one would work for many different options. Okay. So if you get that done, if you get hung up on it, let me know and I'll help you with it too. But that's kind of the idea. All right. New drawing. So file, new drawing. Use your template if you have one. If you don't have one, what you can do, I'll just assume you don't. You can go to like use a standard and then just change the size. It's kind of a crappy looking title block, but it definitely works. And hit create. And looks like it's just regular A size. So switch the size over correctly right away. So where it says ANSI large, right click on that. I'm sorry, where it says sheet, right click on it, edit sheet, and switch it from D or whatever you have over to A. It looks like that's what it is. Okay, okay. Well, that's even bigger. That's about right though. It's just a different title block because we haven't made the title block yet. Now, if you have your own title block, that's best for sure. Use that. This thing looks terrible. Okay. There are some better ones out there. If you want to use a better one, the way I do it sometimes is I go to new drawing, pick on that, and I get more options. Well, that's not right either. Where's it at? Just pick new, I think. Then you get more options. Then you go to drawing here, or you expand that. English. There we go. English. Not giving me very many options, is it? I want to pick a metric because then I have all millimeters. Okay, I'll just go ahead and make it larger like that. It's fine. Go ahead and put all your U's in there to match what's up there. That's the example. is 1/2 scale, so it does fit close, so that's good. Hit OK. In case you forgot, make sure this one is fully 3D. So I want to make sure that's full 3D. Hit OK. These should be standard with hidden lines shown for standard, which they are by default. You need to put all the center marks in there. For everywhere there's an arc or circle. Okay, you need to put center lines through there wherever there's a where it's going through an arc or circle. Okay, so for center lines, just a little bit of update on or reminder on that. So that's in the annotate group. All this stuff will be. And to do a center line, I usually pick the bisector one. Okay, and I pick the 2 lines I want it to be between. Try to avoid the center marks. Okay, if it's not long enough, you can escape and stretch it out a little bit with those grips. Okay, those go everywhere you see a circle going through. Okay, theoretically there could be one here too, but it doesn't really matter so much on all the views. So do all them, put all your dimensions in there like it's shown here. Should be basically identical. Save it, and then go back to the part and change them to yours, and then upload that one for grade. So just upload the drawing for a grade. I don't need anything else. So just the latest drawing from your new parameter. If you weren't assigned a parameter, just pick one different and tell me which one that is in the notes. So like version 6 or version 7 or version 9. Okay. I'll put that in the notes for the lab too. Okay, I'm gonna stop this video right now. It doesn't look like anybody's in there anyway, so